Okay, hang on. Let's go back through these. Networking is great depending on what you're trying to sell. If you're trying to, I mean, if it, she's probably in more coaching, mentoring, business, something like that. I'm not sure what she's in, but networking a lot of times is overrated, in my opinion. It's hard. You can build deep relationships, but generally people that are at networking events are also trying to sell stuff. So it's kind of hard to sort of get there. You rarely find decision makers in a lot of places like that. Direct response copywriting, yeah, that's great. Niche marketing is incredibly important. Actually, I truly think that like marketing in general, I believe it's probably already there anyway, but the getting super niche and actually being like you need to get yeses all across the board when someone's looking at your brand and what you're doing and when you're targeting them now, because there's so much competition, so much noise out there that most marketing people just ignore. So it really needs to touch them and hit them for even to make a decision. So I totally agree with this. Public speaking is also great, but yeah, of course, depending on what you're actually doing, it could, because if you're a builder, no one gives a shit if you're up there to public speaking, I guess. Meditation is good. I don't do it enough though. Something that I always get fascinated with all of this business advice and a lot of people growing out, a lot of stuff that are going through these TikToks. Almost no one talks about the product or service that you're offering. So you see this here talking about like find out what makes your business unique for customers. It's a lot of people like you need to make your product better than everyone else's on the market. And there's talking about mood boards and brands and creating a brand voice and having a great logo and all this, like all of it doesn't matter. And if your product and service is terrible, your business will fail. Like that's the end of it. So many businesses they get caught up, and business owners get caught up in this idea of like, I must market, I must grow, I must do all these things. They're not focusing on making the product better for the customer. If you can sell to a customer and they love your product and fall in love with you, then they will probably go and tell two of their friends, and they start that network effect. And that's truly how you scale a business, because it goes through, you market to them, you sell to them, and that's great. Then you have to service them. If they're not happy there, they either won't come back around and repurchase, and so you'll be continually bleeding the bucket. And if you do a great job, though, it can expedite and increase your marketing, because they'll give you good positive reviews, and they'll feed people into your marketing efforts to go through and sell again. So you really want to be focusing on making your products truly, truly amazing first thing before you do even bother considering about anything else.
One thing I wish someone told me before I started my e-commerce online store: it's bloody expensive. From my experience, every dollar I have made in sales, I have reinvested. My business is almost 2 years old now. I have not paid myself $1. Marketing is hella expensive. I reinvest into marketing because it's not worth me leaving this money sitting in the bank. I have to keep going out to helping my business grow, to getting my business in front of as many people as possible. Amazon, Tesla, and the iconic AU all didn't make a profit for 5 years.
Okay, I want to touch on this for a second. So yeah, marketing is incredibly expensive. And as you scale and grow your business, if you're trying to scale, it's like growth eats cash. That's just the way it works. When you start growing, you need to hire more people, you need to get more stock, you need to do all things, all the cash goes out. But if you are doing marketing, it shouldn't, no, I wouldn't even consider it expensive. You're just reinvesting in your business, because marketing, doing it properly, it should have a positive return on investment. So if you spend $10, you should be getting like 50 back. So then that 50 can go back into your business and you can continue to scale that way. And this profit for first 5 years, I think Amazon was even worse than that. It's a little bit disingenuous, because those companies they're not trying to make a profit because they're in that hyper growth stage, and profit is just means they have to pay taxes on it, right? So they're going into reinvesting into warehouses and all these different areas. But that doesn't mean they fundamentally aren't able to produce a profit, which is very different to a lot of small business owners that just fundamentally cannot turn that profit tap on. Amazon, whenever they wanted during those 5 years, could have turned that profit tap on and generated a hell of a lot of profit. But they didn't need to, because they were very, very cash flow heavy. A lot of small business owners, no cash, and the profit wheel, they cannot turn it on at any time. They don't have control of that. They're just in a sort of a spiral of chasing their tails and not really going anywhere. So it's a little bit disingenuous to say, my business hasn't made money for 5 years, and that's totally okay because Amazon did it, because it's not, most cases that's not true.
Yes. Initially, every single customer costs you money. You're essentially paying for your customers to shop with you.
If you're doing, if you got more expensive marketing,
Before you start your e-commerce store, save up as much money as you can, and maybe get an investor or maybe get a business partner. Don't quit your full-time job, because you're going to need that to support you through this journey. It's honestly the best thing I have ever done in my life, but this is just one thing I wish someone told me before
I would be very cautious about getting an investor or business partner's fine, depending on what goals you are, but when you're just starting out in business and you've got an idea or you want to do it, you want to be able to pivot, you want to be able to move in a little friction as possible. And you also want to go be as lean as possible. What I see a lot is people get an investor, they get a heap of money, and then they go and they start going down this road, they start building out their stuff, and they aren't running lean, they're trying to hire more people, they're trying to scale up. But what generally happens in business is you get to sort of 6 months down and you need to pivot in another direction. But it's much harder to do that if you've got a whole heap of debt or you've got a whole heap of commitments, and now you've made, so now you've got to go down a certain road, and it can just make it a real mess. So I would say when you're starting a business, especially if it's your first business, is start as lean as possible. You can start a business like an online business or an online e-commerce store with very little cash flow these days. I wouldn't necessarily recommend drop shipping if you're trying to actually build a brand, but there are other ways to go about it. And try to just start selling and start being as lean as possible without trying to scale up too quickly with investors and things like that.
I gotta be honest here, because I think a lot of people need to hear this. If you've been scrolling through TikTok, I'm sure you've seen people talking about the businesses they've launched and their products and how much money they're making. But I gotta be honest with you guys, it's hard as shit. There are so many highs, so many lows, and because it's harder than easy, it makes those highs and those triumphs that much sweeter to keep you going. But I share this with you because if you think that you can start a business and it's going to be smooth sailing and you're going to be an overnight success, that's a myth. You should only do it if you feel an undying drive in your gut that you want to launch your product business or whatever business. Because if you don't do it for the right reasons, you're going to hate it, because it's hard and rewarding.
I completely agree. So many people start a business because they've got some sort of delusion of grandeur when they start it. They don't realize how bloody painful and difficult it is. I think in Australia, the stat is that 98% of businesses will go broke or be out of business in the first 10 years. 98%. And out of the 2% that make it, only 5% of them will be making over $1 million in gross sales. So basically, only 2% of the 98% that actually make it will actually become like rather big businesses and actually scale. So people think they're going to be over success and they think they've got this great idea, and just be aware of how difficult it is and how much pain you're going to have to go through. And this is where like the passion part comes into it. If you aren't passionate about the thing that you're doing, you're really setting yourself up for the hard roads, and just be aware and be okay with the idea that this may not work and you may have to close down, and be prepared for that scenario, and don't get yourself in too much debt or go down a road where it's going to basically destroy you if you do fail, because it is very highly likely that you will. I think it's really interesting with TikTok, like TikTok in general. I know that people are trying to get their message through in very quick formats. I'm a little bit more detail oriented, where I like to give people like a bit more detail than I think they necessarily need to have. But no, I think a lot of it was really good. I think a lot of it was pretty basic, aimed at a lot of people's smaller businesses, which is fantastic. But some of it might not necessarily be great advice, and may probably potentially put hurdles in front of you if you are trying to really scale and grow to an amazing business. But overall, well, I thought it was pretty good.